Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Books Vision channel. I hope this video very useful to you. We need to learn more our whole life. So let's jump into the topic. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you want more daily updates.
Trust in women leaders is falling even as their numbers in high-ranking positions are rising. Why? More women than ever before are running the world's biggest companies. But research shows that the rise in representation has been accompanied by a fall in trust in female leaders. It paints a grim picture for those who manage to break through the metaphorical glass ceiling. In November, new data from the Reykjavik Index for Leadership, an annual survey that compares how men and women are viewed in terms of their suitability for positions of power, showed trust in women leaders has fallen markedly throughout the past year. Responses to questions about female political leaders followed a similar pattern. Just 45% of those questioned in the G7 said they were very comfortable with a woman at the head of their government, down from 52% in 2021. They all warn, however, that fixing the trust gap is critical to eradicating bias that permeates every level of companies and institutions. Some experts argue that institutional misogyny and gender bias has been supercharged by both the recent political landscape and the pandemic. For some people, it's jarring to see women in power when they haven't traditionally been at the head of the table, and this may erode trust. She also highlights humans' natural tendency to demonstrate a preference for the familiar, a phenomenon psychologists refer to as the mere exposure effect, or the familiarity principle, which may become more pronounced during times of crisis or uncertainty. Fear ignites us to move towards what we've traditionally been taught is safe and secure, says Michelle Harrison, Global CEO of Kantar Public, referring to the US Supreme Court's June 2022 decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And that's a factor that's potentially been exacerbated by trends across social media. The preponderance of online content that's misogynistic or encourages violence against women has directly led to a culture of sexism in everyday life. Laura Bates, a British author, campaigner and researcher, wrote in her 2020 book Men Who Hate Women, "Fear ignites us to move towards what we've traditionally been taught is safe and secure. And when it comes to leadership, that unfortunately still means men being in charge." Dana Greenberg, a 2020 study from the UK charity Hope Not Hate, also established the connection between what's happening on the internet and attitudes in the real world. Anti-feminism, the researchers concluded, appeals to young men who have grown up online and who might feel emasculated in an age of changing social norms. Echoing this year's Reykjavik Index for Leadership shows that in certain countries, including Japan and Germany, young people actually hold less progressive views than older generations, meaning they might be less likely to trust women leaders. According to the experts, historically, the workplace and government have been largely dominated by men, and cultures inadvertently have been created for men. This means that any exception to the norm can be perceived with distrust, says Alison Zimmerman, Executive Director for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Catalyst, a global non-profit that works with CEOs and leading companies to build workplaces that work for women. Separate research from Cecilia Hyunjung Mo, an associate professor in political science at the University of California, Berkeley, echoes this. When you get more women into leadership, that behavior starts to come out. Because a woman in leadership upsets the accepted narrative that we've all learned. And people love to see women fail because a woman succeeding doesn't fit into the narrative we've all been taught. When Hillary Clinton lost the presidential election to Donald Trump, many media outlets asked whether America was really ready for a female president. One study from 2016 by the US Rockefeller Foundation, a philanthropic research organization, showed when a female CEO's company is in trouble, news stories are much more likely to blame her as the source of the problem than if a male CEO's company is in trouble. as more women successfully ascend the ranks. Experts say it's reasonable to expect more criticism of their personal shortcomings. Consider the explosion of publicity around disgraced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes, recently jailed for misleading the public about the effectiveness of her blood testing technology. When a high-profile woman is perceived to have failed, she is frequently pointed to as a reason why women shouldn't be in leadership positions. Research has also shown that women are more likely to be picked for top corporate roles when a company is in turmoil or when the risk of failure is particularly high, a phenomenon known as the glass cliff. In October, Bed Bath & Beyond appointed a female CEO amid a stock price plummet. Karen Bass recently became mayor of Los Angeles as the city grapples with a brutal homeless crisis and corruption. Few reasons for optimism across many cultures and workplaces. Gendered bias is entrenched and therefore extremely stubborn, meaning that a quick solution to stamping it out will never exist. The latest data is therefore particularly depressing, says Kantar Public's Michelle Harrison. I'm really struggling to find reasons to be optimistic, she says.
I hope this video very useful to you. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you want more daily updates. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.